Here we go. Ha, 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 ha.
Now, I've learned some things in the 27 or so years since my mind has been changed on this, and one of those things has to do about Christians being dumb. What I learned was, well, a lot of Christians are dumb, and they hold to Christianity for less than intelligent reasons. But as I reflected on this, I realized that maybe a lot of Christians are dumb, but a lot of non-Christians are dumb too, and hold to their beliefs for less than intelligent reasons. And so that doesn't get us very far. What I'd like to show you this afternoon is that it may turn out that Christianity and the teachings of Jesus Christ and the whole issue of following Christ may not be as absurd as you might have thought it. But it may turn out that the foundational concepts that drive the Christian worldview actually resonate with the deepest intuitions that you have about the nature of the world. And I'm going to focus on one particular issue. It's an idea. And I think this idea is important because I think as we probe this idea a little bit and think about it and ask some questions about it and give it something like a rigorous analysis as best as we can do in about 45 minutes, that we might learn something in the process about the key to understanding the nature of the world. I know that sounds like a bold claim, but I mean it. And I want to start off by telling you something that happened to me about 5 years ago now. I like having conversations with people, kind of on the street as it were, about spiritual things, just to get an idea of what they think, where they're coming from, and what their ideas are. And so I was in a chiropractor's office, getting ready to get cracked, I guess, they should call them chiropractors, actually, because they crack you. And I had some therapy I needed, so I was there, and I was getting prepped by this young lady, and I thought, well, I'm going to ask her this question. And so I asked permission, can I ask you a more personal question? She said, well, what is it? I said, well, I'm going to ask you some questions about morality. I've been doing some thinking about it, and I'm wondering about the nature of morality. And I want to know if I can ask you this question. She said, all right, go ahead. I said, is morality objective in some sense, or is morality relative? Is it up to the individual? She said, well, what do you mean by morality? I thought, this is not a good sign. I said, well, morality, right and wrong, which is right and wrong. So we started to talk, and it became clear to me that she's having a very difficult time even understanding the nature of the question. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give her what we call a clear case example. It's like a question or a challenge that's easy to answer and meant to get the ball rolling. It's kind of like, who's buried in Grant's tomb? And what's the number to 911? The obvious ones. So I offer her this. I said, is murder wrong? The taking of an innocent life. Well, I said, well what? Well, I'm thinking. And I'm thinking, what's to think about? Because this is the easy one. This is to get things rolling, and she's having a hard time with it. I said, well, I don't understand the confusion. Are you suggesting that there are conditions in which it's okay just to simply take another human life without any justification whatsoever? She said, well, I think it's kind of an individual matter. So this question wasn't easy enough. So I thought, okay, I got to give her another one. How about this? Is it okay to torture babies for fun? Well, I wouldn't want them to do that to my baby. Now, you think about that response for a moment. Do you see how the response is not a response to my question? My question was whether the act itself was wrong, and what she responded to me with is a response of personal preference. I wouldn't like this. And that response is key to everything that I want to talk about this afternoon. And I pointed this out to her. I said, that's not my question. I wouldn't want somebody to feed me a plate of burnt food, but I wouldn't say that they are wrong or immoral for doing that. What I want to know is if at any time, in any culture, under any set of circumstances, it could possibly be morally justified to torture babies just for the pleasure it brings you. Long pause, and then she finally said, well, I think that everybody should be allowed to decide for themselves. This actually happened. I'm not making this up. I make some things up. I didn't make this up. And I imagine that if this woman were awakened in the middle of that very night by the plaintive screams of a child next door being tormented by his or her parents for the pure pleasure it brought the parents, this woman would have considered those people barbaric and would have dialed 911. It shows, by the way, that when we're not trying to think about it, sometimes our moral common sense or our moral intuitions rise immediately to the surface and actually accurately inform the circumstances. But when she was forced to have to stop and begin to think about it and talk it through, she was not even able to bring herself to condemn torturing babies for fun as obviously immoral. Now, what's going on here? I do not think that this woman's inability to respond in that circumstance is unusual in our culture today. In fact, it's more the rule than the exception when people are forced to think about things. Now, when they're just responding, generally they make moral statements quite frequently and accurately, but in this circumstance where she's asked to think it through, she can't do that. What's going on here is the power of an idea. And that idea is called relativism. It's the view, simply put, that when it comes to questions of morality, of moral facts, of moral dictates, of moral rules, that there are no rules out there, as it were. You have math rules out there, arguably. You have natural laws out there, as it were. And so you could differ on the nature of natural laws, but in differing on your views of natural laws, it doesn't change the way the natural laws themselves are, because they're out there. They're objects of the universe. But when it comes to moral claims, and also for religious claims largely, people say this is not a function of knowledge. You don't know moral things. You don't know religious things. You just believe them. And different people have different beliefs. And then added on to that, if not spoken, at least implied, is that everybody's belief is equally legitimate. I like to think of relativism as it applies to these issues, kind of like ice cream. You like one flavor, I like another. I don't say you're wrong because you have a different preference in ice cream. You don't say I'm wrong because I have a different preference. And when it comes to moral questions, you have what you like, I have what I like, and we don't judge each other. The truth is relative to the subject. We don't push our morality on other people. There's another way. Or don't judge me. These are statements. Who are you to say what's right or wrong? All kinds of statements that we hear in our culture that are coming from this place of extreme skepticism about the existence of any moral thing at all. And so morals are just reduced to individual preferences. Now, just as an aside, think about this for a moment. What is it that holds our culture together? The things that really holds our culture together are common values expressed through law. So we have things that we commonly hold to be good, that we encourage in law, and commonly hold to be evil, that we discourage in law, and this helps our culture work. Aristotle says that law stands upon the necessary foundation of morality. Some people say, well, you can't legislate morality. If Aristotle's right, and I think he is, in this issue, morality is the only thing you can legislate. Because if the law is not based on some concept of the common good, and it is just there to enforce some personal preference, this is despotism. This isn't legitimate use of the law. Now, what happens if law stands on a necessary foundation of morality, but morality turns out to be nothing in particular? The law more and more becomes simply a raw exercise of power, and there's not even an attempt anymore to justify the use of the power morally. And I think this is the postmodern approach. Morality is irrelevant. It doesn't exist. Power is all that matters.